G'day, this is Andrew Price here from BlenderGuru.com, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create the scene that you can see right here. So we're getting into, of course, cities. Very ambitious project. They're very complex. There is a very good reason why you don't see too many of them online. Yeah, they are just really, really super dense. Lots of work to be done. You know, you've got the buildings, you've got people, if you want to add people, you've got cars, street lamps, the whole shebang. It's a really, as I said, ambitious project to partake in. So I've been wanting to do a tutorial on this topic for many, I don't know, I suppose 1 or 2 years ago is when I originally had the idea. But every time I tried it, it just took either too long or I wasn't happy with the results. And I tried various methods. I tried using scripts. I tried particle systems. I tried a whole range of different things. And I could never really get it to sort of mesh together and whatever else. So I gave it a good bash though over the last week, and I discovered a method which I found worked quite well, and it's relatively easy. It doesn't take too long. It's probably the easiest of all the methods I've found. So that's what we're going to be learning in this tutorial. So I'll just show you what the finished scene looks like before we start it. So to create the city blocks, essentially what we're going to be using is particle systems. So all I've got here is a plane which has been chopped to pieces, and then I've got particles coming out, which are those individual buildings. So very, very straightforward. So I'm also going to be showing you how to model the buildings themselves. So they're very, very low poly. The majority of it is just textures. And then as well as that, we're also going to be creating the road as well, which is very important. So where's the road? Yeah. That road that you can see right there. So getting it so that it's textured and looks right, so that the intersections look okay and everything else. So yeah, so we're going to be learning a whole range of different things in this tutorial. So I'm hoping you guys are excited as I am. So go ahead now and open up a new scene in Blender. So the first thing we're going to be doing is modeling one of those individual buildings, and then we're going to be getting into the city grid or whatever else. So I'm going to take this default cube right here, and I'm just going to move it to a new layer all by itself on layer 6 out of the way. And I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to press G, and then along the Z axis like this, holding down Control, I'm just going to leave that cube resting there on that origin point. And it's important that the origin point is at the base of the cube, because that's where the particles are going to be emanating from. So you want to make sure that it is at the base. Then once you've got that, you want to go ahead and hit S to scale, and then we're going to be scaling along the Z axis. So hit Z and then just press the number 3, and that will now scale it 3 times like that. So you've now got a very basic looking building. So what we want to do is we want to UV unwrap this building, because, as I said before, the majority of the building is very, very simple, very low poly. Aside from a little balcony on the top and a little shop at the bottom, it's very, very low poly. And because that is, of course, because you want to keep things optimized for rendering. So to UV unwrap it, what I'm going to start by doing is deleting the face on the top and on the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make each one of these sides here, it's sort of its own individual part in the when we get into UV unwrapping. So to make it easy, I'm just going to go ahead and hit Mark Seam on all of those. So you hit Control E, then hit Mark Seam, like so. Mark Seam, and Mark Seam, like that. Then what I'm going to do is I want to create a loop cut just on the bottom there, and this is going to be the area where the shop is going to be, or the base, or the ground floor of the building. And it's very important that you have, it's very important you have a something at the bottom which signifies where people walk in, because I find that that's one of the reasons some cities look quite fake, is because when the viewer looks at the base of the building, there's nothing there, and it's immediately obvious that it is a CG render. So make sure you've got something at the bottom. So you want to make sure that you keep it consistent with whatever texturing you're going to do. So however small you make those windows, however big the floors are, you want to make sure that the ground, this part right here, matches the what would you call it, vertical height of the floors. So anyway, something like that is going to work quite fine. Then getting up to the top here, what I'm going to do is model a very basic balcony. And it's important that you spend a little bit of time doing the, making sure that the top looks nice, because that's what is going to be most visible to the camera, is the tops of all of your buildings. So I'm just going to model this little balcony here, so extruding that upwards, extrude it again, scale it inwards, extrude it down, and then place a face, just like that. Then I'm going to create another seam just on that top there like that, mark seam. And I'm also going to create another seam right here so that we've got a separate area where we can UV unwrap a floor. So I'm then going to hit Control, mark seam, like that. So the balcony, oh, what did I press? That's not mark seam at all. Okay, Control E. Ah, that was sharp. Okay, mark seam, like that. Okay, so the balcony itself isn't going to be having any texture on it, so it doesn't really matter about that. Just that floor at the top there, the sides of the building, very important, and the shop at the bottom. Oh, add another loop cut, sorry, not a loop cut, another seam at the base there for the shop as well. So essentially now what you've got is that right there. So I'm going to split the view right now, and we're going to UV unwrap it. Okay, so if you just go U and then select UV unwrap, you'll notice now, at least I think in later versions of Blender, this little message pops up at the top there. I'll just do it again so you can see it. It says object scale is not 1. Unwrap will operate on a non-scaled version of the mesh. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I haven't really seen that message before. But I thought, okay, well, if it's a non-scaled version, that's because if you hit N and you go and you have a look at the scaling properties, you can see that it's got a Z of 3 and everything else. Essentially, to make a good UV unwrap, you want to make sure that X, Y, and Z all have a value of 1. So the way we're going to do that is, once we've finished modeling the building, if we hit Control A and then select Apply Scale, like that, you'll see that they are now all 1. And now, if you UV unwrap this, you can see that the UV unwrap has completely changed to be something that is a lot more usable, as you can see right there. So it's really cool. Like, I didn't know that having a non-scaled mesh actually affected the UV unwrapping. So it's really cool they've put in that little warning there at the top there. That's a really nice user-friendly feature, because I mean, I've been using Blender for about 8 years. I had no idea that the object scale would affect the UV unwrapping. So anyway. Okay, so now that we've got this that you can see right here, first thing I want to do is I want to grab these sides here. So these ones right here, that's the most important part of it, because obviously that's the biggest part of the building. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that they are all 4 of these sides are in the exact same place. So I'm just going to go holding down Control, actually not holding down Control, yeah, just like that, that's fine. I'm just going to do this for all of these, just line them all up. And this is just going to make it easier for us when we add in a texture to see where it's applying on, essentially so that all the sides, excuse me, all the sides have the exact same looking texture. Now these parts here, if I just go, what is it, press that little button there, I go to face select mode. Okay, so these parts that you can see right here, you can see that they are actually the base of the shop, sorry, the base of the building, the entrance of it. So I'm going to do the same for these. I'm just going to line them all up like this. And I'm just going to move them out of the way for now. And then this part right here, we can go ahead and move that out of the way as well. That is the balcony at the top there. That's not UV unwrapped at all. I mean, it's not going to have any texture on it. So I can just go ahead and just move that out of the way. That's fine. Now this part up here, this is the rooftop floor. I'm going to go ahead and move that out of the way as well. And I'm just going to focus now on these sides. So I'm just going to scale this up so that it sort of fits that area like so. And we can now go ahead and add in our image. So the image that I'm going to use is one from cgtextures.com. They got a whole range of cool looking seamless building textures. So these are the ones that you can see right here. Now it's very important that the texture that you choose is seamless, because we're going to be using UV unwrapping so that it repeats the texture. And if you've got something that's not seamless, seamless is another word for tileable, by the way, then it's going to look funny. It's going to look very obvious that a texture is repeating. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use this texture here called Buildings High Rise 504. So go ahead and add that in right here. And just go ahead and save your Blender file now as well if you haven't already. If I switch into textured viewport mode, you'll notice that there's nothing appearing there, and you're probably thinking, oh, why is that? That's kind of bad, because, well, normally in Blender, if you go to the Blender rendering engine and you just turn on textured viewport mode, it'll take this texture from this UV window here and put it on there. But because we're in Cycles render mode, yeah, make sure you're on Cycles, by the way, I didn't say that at the start. Yeah, we're in Cycles render view mode. You have to actually add the material. So with this building here selected, I'm just going to go ahead and click on Use Nodes. Then I'm going to select Image. Then I'm just going to go and grab that image that we just used right there. And you can see now it has applied it to the building. So the next step is to scale up this right here till we've got the right sort of size for our windows and floors and whatever else. Because obviously if you kept it the way it was before, those windows are huge, so that would mean that the building is quite small. So you want to scale it up, just something that looks good to you. So you want to make sure that also that the size of these windows are about the same size as that ground floor there. So just scaling it up a little bit more. I think that should be good, like so. And another important factor is that you can see on the edge there, that window is kind of like going harsh up against the corner of the building. And in real life, that wouldn't happen. So you want to make sure that you scale it in a way like that, so that you've got sort of a, yeah, the wall is showing, not a window. So, because I find that that can really break the believability of the image if you've got part of the, you know, if it's going up against a window or something like that. So now you can see the reason why we placed all 4 of those corners in the exact same spot, because now once you've lined it up so that you've got that wall in the right space, it's now on all 4 sides in the pretty much exact same spot. So that is the reason that we do that. And then of course also at the bottom there, you want to make sure that that base is, yeah, it's not showing half a window or something like that. And then the top as well. So I might just scale that like so. Anyway, you kind of get the gist of it. So now we've got the outside of the building pretty much UV unwrapped. So that is the biggest part of it, really. So I'm going to go ahead and add, give that material a name. I'm going to call that sides, like so. And now I'm going to add a new material, and it's just going to be the balcony. So this area at the top right here. So if I just select that whole thing right there, add a new material. Let's call this balcony, and then hit assign. So it's just going to give it this default diffuse value. That's fine. That's all right. I'll just go back into textured viewport mode. You can see. Here we go. And I'm going to add another material, and this is going to be for the floor. This rooftop floor right here. So add a new material. This is going to be rooftop floor. And the image that I'm going to use is another one I found off cgtextures.com. It is, if I can find it, there's a whole number of different ones you can use. I might just use, I think this one's tileable anyway. Concrete Bear 145. Let's go ahead, load that in. And bring this in right here. Okay, I'll go into textured view mode. Okay, so you can see there's a problem has occurred. It's applied the same texture to the sides, which is what we didn't want to happen. Okay, so Concrete Bear. Ah, that's annoying, isn't it? That's really annoying. Because essentially I wanted to UV unwrap it so that this was in the right spot for this. There's a reason that I've... normally what I would do is I would add a new UV mapping here, so you just go ahead and give it a new name or whatever. But currently Cycles doesn't have a way to change the UV mapping, like which UV mapping to use. So we're just having... I mean, it's not that much of a hindrance for this project, but it's just kind of annoying. So I'm just having to do it all here. I'm just using that base image there. So let's go ahead. Let's see if we can get this to work. It's kind of annoying that it isn't working. Concrete. That's really, really starting to annoy me. Okay, so why is this happening? Let's have a look. So those floors are in the right spot. Concrete Bear. That is very annoying, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so I found the problem. We haven't actually assigned the rooftop floor material, so just select that rooftop floor, then click Assign. And we should now, if we go into Textured View mode, we should see, there you go, you've now got the concrete texture in the right spot. So provided that this fills that square that you can see right there, even though it's the wrong texture, it's working just fine, so that's good. Okay, and then the last one is just this shop floor at the bottom here. This one is quite easy as well. We're just going to be taking, of course, another image, one that I got off CG Textures, and it is this one. So it's just a shop front image. So I'm just going to go into textured view mode here. Let's give it a new material. Let's call this shop. Oh, no, we'll call it building base or ground floor. And then I'm going to hit assign. on those faces at the bottom there, and then give it an image texture, and then just select shops like so. So now if we go into textured viewport mode, and then if we just scale this up like this, you can see that we've now got that shop front appearing where it should. Scale that up a little bit. Doesn't have to look perfect, but you know, something like that is going to be fine. I think also the UV mapping here is slightly off, so I'm just going to go scale that. Whoops. Okay, turn off that. Why can't I select those? That is very annoying. Okay. Oh, okay. Vertice mode. Alright. Scale on the x-axis for both of those. X. I'm just hitting S, Y, 0. So scale along the y-axis. Then 0 it, like so. Okay, so now we've got rid of that weird texture proportional issue that was just happening there. And now that's looking pretty good. So if you wanted to, you could make that you know, wider, like so, and you could fix up the texturing around the base there as well, so you don't have it kind of overlapping the sides. But I mean, to be honest, it looks doable. It's fine. So to complete it as well, I'm just going to add a little bit of a just around the base of it, just like a little ledge, like the sort of, you know, if it's raining, people come out of the entrance, they don't want to get rained on. So there's a little bit of a ledge just around the base there. So I'm just going to add in a cube, scale it out slightly, and scale it along the Z axis, just like so. Let's go into textured viewport mode. And there you go, just like that. So giving it a new texture, sorry, a new material for that, I'm just going to make that a nice blackish color like that. You notice that the viewport color is still white. That's because there's a separate setting down here. So if you want, you can just steal the main color from there, like that. And there we go. Now looking at the top here, the tops of the buildings, I recommend having a look at some reference photos of some real buildings, seeing how the tops of these, sort of how they look. Essentially what they have is a little tiny building at the top there with a door so that maintenance workers can come out here and fix stuff. You usually got air conditioning vents, you've got a whole bunch of other stuff on there. So I'm just going to do a very basic one of that just by adding in a cube. Let's just bring this to the top here. I can show you scale it down so that it's not too tall. So like that. I'm going to add in a loop cut right there. And let's just extrude that outwards. Okay, moving that in. Alright, and this is just going to be a doorway right here, so I'm just going to add a loop cut in right there. Move that across, add another loop cut there. And we can also delete or remove the faces on the bottom there. And then I'll just grab that doorway, extrude that backwards. You can delete that edge there if you want. Like so. And for the material, I'm just going to make that the balcony material. Then I'm going to give it a new material. It's going to be door. Very basic. Just select that right there. Let's give it this dark-ish looking material like that. Ah, I just made the balcony that color. Okay, all right. It's annoying. Okay, let's try that again. Door. Okay, dark brown, and then I'm going to hit assign on that. Just make sure that the viewport is the same. And there you go. Now you've got a nice little door there as well. If you want, you can give a little balcony, like a little gutter for that top part of the building as well. And you can also add in some air conditioners or something like that. So if you just add in, I mean, it's pretty basic. It's essentially all you're doing is just adding in a few cubes. Having a look at reference photos really, really does help. So go to Google Images, type in rooftops, or you can check it out on Flickr as well. You can also have a look at some of the concept art from the game Mirror's Edge, because a lot of that game is spent on rooftops as well. So there's there's a whole range of different stuff you can do. You can add more details to them. I don't know what they are, like air conditioning boxes or something like that. It doesn't really matter all that much. Anyway, so I'm just going to go, let's just hit Control Materials. So selecting all of those now, I'm just going to make that one solid object with the rest of it. just like that. Just go into textured viewport mode right now, and you can see you've now got a basic looking building. Now, if I just quickly add in, we can get rid of that UV mapping now. If I add in a sun lamp, just so that we can see how this looks. Let's just tilt it from the side a little bit. Okay, and then let's just go into rendered viewport shading mode. You can see that all the textures are showing up as they should, and the building is coming together quite nicely. Now, one thing that you can do, this is an optional step, but I find that it does help add a lot more detail to the city, is wherever there is a window, you want it to look slightly reflective, because obviously there's glass there. So at the moment it looks quite plain, quite fake, very paperish looking. So to add some more realism, it would help if these windows, just the windows, were reflective. So the way we're going to do that is by actually using or modifying the original texture. So what I'm going to do is I'll just show you. I'm just locating the texture here just so that I can show you it. Where is it? 504 mirror. Okay. So what I've got here is a black and white version of that original texture. So essentially all it was just going into GIMP or Photoshop and then just painting over those windows that are, yeah, making them black basically. It's really easy. Like, in fact, I didn't even actually do most of these. I have an assistant and I asked her to go ahead and do it for me. And that's like the first time I've ever asked anyone really to help with the blendering. It just takes a little bit of time just going through the textures and just painting over them. It's really, really super basic stuff. So we're going to be using this right here, which is just the exact same one, just black and white with windows. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go back to solid view mode right here. So we're going to do something a little bit fancy with these cycles materials. So I'm just going to go into the node editor right here. If you haven't used nodes for cycles before, it's pretty basic. It's just put together our basic material that we've got there currently. So it's just using an image texture through a diffuse shader, and then we've got the output right there. So what we want to do is, first of all, I'm just going to duplicate that image texture. And I'm going to load in, if I can find it, 504 mirror, that one right there. I'm just going to load this in right here, and that is going to act as a stencil. Okay, so that's going to be the part where the mirror part is showing through. So what I want to do is add in a mix shader like this. Put the diffuse into the bottom input like that. I'm then going to add in a glossy shader like this. Let's turn the glossiness amount all the way down to 0 so that it's 100% reflective, no softness at all. And I'm just going to drop that into the top input like that. I'm then going to take the output from the image texture and put it into that factor input like that. So that's now going to act as our stencil so that the glossy parts show up wherever there is black in this stencil image. And the rest of it is going to be a diffuse shader. So I'm hoping that all makes sense. So just to check that it all works, let's go into rendered viewport mode right here. And we haven't really got much for it to reflect, except you can see down the bottom there where you've got that ledge sticking out, that those windows are now reflective. But there is a problem though, and that is that the windows are 100% reflective, which isn't exactly what we want. We don't want it to be 100%. We want it to be slightly less than that, obviously. So normally what I'd suggest is, yeah, you just turn down the factor amount to be whatever it is you want. But because we've already got this into this mix shader here, what we're going to have to do is add in a mix node like this, not a mix shader, a mix node like that. I'm going to drop this into the bottom input like this, and I'm going to turn this value here will now act as the strength of our mirror. Okay, so if we just go like this, you can see if we turn that down, that mirror effect is now decreased, like so. And if we turn it down, oh, it's even less. Okay, so now if we have to make sure that this input right here is set to 100% white. So now you can see if we experiment with that value like that, if we turn that all the way up to 1, it's 100% reflective. And then if you turn that down to 0.3, which is where we're actually going to leave it, I found that was a kind of a nice blend between it, that you now get a nice mix of the original texture as well as the windows now looking reflective. So that's going to really help it come to life when we add in the rest of the city, because you'll see things, other buildings reflecting into each other, and it'll look overall a lot nicer. So what we have right now is one building. Now, I would suggest, and I'm telling you guys, you need to have more than one building. You can't just model one building and then just make the whole city from that, because it's going to look really, really super fake. So what I actually did for my scene, as I showed you before, this is it right here. I modeled a whole bunch of buildings. By the way, there is twice as many as, like, this side here is almost exactly the same as this side right here. I just rotated them. So there isn't that many buildings. I think I've got, how many is that? 4 plus 4 is 8, 10, 14 buildings in total. That's just what I model, and they are pretty simple. All you need to do is just duplicate one, then change a few things, duplicate it again. So essentially they've all got different textures, like this. If I just go into textured view, yeah, just different textures, and that's really what's going to help make the make it look more realistic, because you can't have repeating patterns. It becomes immediately obvious to the viewer that it's fake. So as I said, it's very simple. All you need to do is duplicate one of these. You need to change the height of it. That's very important. So you just take that, extrude it downwards. You might want to change some of the stuff on the roof there as well. Change the texture as well. And then once you do that, if you change the height of the building, you're also going to have to change the UV unwrapping as well. Because if you go into textured view mode, you'll find that these the floors here, you can see that these windows are a lot more tinier than these ones over here, because we've now essentially stretched them. So you need to change the UV mapping to make that work. So I'm sure that you guys know how to model one building now, so I'm going to trust you guys to go out and model at least 5 buildings. As a minimum, I'd suggest you have 5 buildings. So to save time, I'm going to go ahead and grab in some buildings that are from my previous one. So I'm just going to grab these object ones. I'm going to grab the blue, the orange, residentials, and the high-rises as well. So these ones right here. So just a few. I'm just going to drop them in right here, like so. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so now that we have a whole bunch of different looking buildings, and I trust that you guys have now modeled all your different looking buildings, we can now go ahead and get into creating the city. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, the way that this works is we're going to be using particles to make each one of these buildings, particles to use each one of these buildings. So first thing we're going to do is add in a plane, and I'm going to scale that up to fit the grid floor. So this is the size of your city. If you want a larger city, make it bigger. Anyway, so now we've got that, I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to subdivide this 5 times. Just like that. So essentially, if you look in the top right hand corner, you've got 1089 vertices. So I subdivide by hitting it multiple times like that, as opposed to just going into the toolbar, but you can fool around with it. I'm using 1089 vertices. That's the number you really want to look for. So once you've got that, then what we're going to do is go ahead and add a particle system, change the type to hair, check advanced, and then way down here underneath render, you can go ahead and click on group. And what it's going to look for is a duplicate group. But we don't actually have a group for our buildings yet. So go to layer 6 again with our buildings, select them all like so, hit Control G, and if you go to the toolbar, you can give it a name even, you can just call that buildings, and go back to our grid floor here, select it from the drop down, check rotation, that's very important, and then underneath rotation right here, you want to check it so that it is coming from the object Y value, like so. Now you'll probably notice, looking at it, that a lot of the buildings are overlapping, they're very random, and it doesn't look good at all. So to fix it, what we're going to be doing is making it, instead of emitting it from the face randomly, just everywhere, we're going to make it emit from the vertices only, and we're also going to uncheck random, like that. And then also, let's just have a look. Yeah, you can see that they are now, it's a lot more squarish. You can see that their buildings aren't overlapping each other either. One thing to also know is that we've got 1089 vertices here, but we only have 1000 particles. So if you turn this up to 1089, you can see that we now have a vertice in each one, wherever there should be one. There's always one missing right there, so just give it one more, and you can see we now have the correct amount. But that number's going to change because we're going to be knocking some out to put in roads and stuff. But I'm just telling you that now. Make sure that that number there always matches whatever number of vertices that you have up there. Or if you want to make less, like make it more sporadic, you can add less like that. You can sort of go nuts. Anyway, okay, so now that we've got the basic city block set up, now we can get into the fun stuff. Or, I don't know, the tedious stuff. I don't know how you want to call it. But and essentially what we're going to be doing now is putting in the roads. So going into edit view mode like this, what I'm going to do is just use the box selector tool by hitting B. I'm just going to select a row of vertices like that and then delete them. So now we have a very clear road where there is no buildings appearing. So essentially, it is just a matter of doing that for the whole city. If you want, you can turn off the other particles just so it's easier to see things. Now, I recommend that you go to Google Maps or something like that, just so that you can see how a real city looks. It's very important that you do some research on this. And what I've found that is, provided that you have it so that at the most there's only 3 vertices in a row like that. You presumably, or most of the time, you want to have 2. And the reason for that is that when you add in buildings like this, if you have 3 rows of buildings, let's just make this number the correct number it should be. If you have 3 numbers of buildings like this, if you can try and imagine if you lived in this skyscraper right here in the middle, how would you get to your house? You'd have to go down an alleyway, and it'd be kind of annoying. So 3 at the max, preferably you want 2. So 2 rows. That's what I mean by when I say 2. So 2, 2, 2, 2, like that. And then you just want to start creating in some roads. So you don't have to use like load in a background image of a real city and kind of go from that. That can help, I guess, but it's just a matter of just doing it randomly and taking a bit of time so that it looks believable. Because I'm going to be doing this very rushedly. That's not a real word. But I'm doing it very quickly because obviously I'm doing a tutorial. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But it is it's very advisable that you do take a little bit more time to go through some things and make it so that it looks good. So you want to have some main roads. You want to have some side streets that not many people go down. So maybe like a dead end right there. There's not a science to this, guys. It's really just a matter of just plodding through it, as I'm doing right now. Okay, so let's just continue with this just a little bit more. Since this is going to take a while, I think it's story time. So, my first year out of school, after I finished high school, I think it was 2006 or 2007, my parents paid for a trip for me to go to America, to go to some leadership course or something like that. So I had 2 weeks in America, and I was there in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And so I was all by myself, pretty much the first time I'd ever traveled alone. And I had like a bunch of time to myself when I wasn't at this camp. And so I did a bit of exploring. I had a few things I wanted to see. I wanted to go see the Hollywood sign. I wanted to go and do everywhere else. But I had this one day where I had nothing planned. And so I decided to just go for a walk. So I went down a walk. This is in LA. And I met this Indian guy at the airport. I don't know why I went to the airport. It's just what I knew. So I just cruised around, and I met this Indian guy at an airport. And he told me that he was a tour bus company owner or something, and he was waiting for some Indian tourists to come off the plane, and he was going to take them on his bus for a tour around LA. And so I got talking with him, and he said that I could come along on the ride for free. So I just jumped on the bus with a whole bunch of other Indians, a whole bunch of Indians. I'm not Indian. and we just cruised around, and he showed me Hollywood. I got to see pretty much all the cool tourist sites. So pretty much it knocked off everything on my to-do list in one day. So I was wrapped. I'd just seen everything, and I got to see it for free. So that was the most important thing. So I was feeling really good. And then he said, it was nighttime. I think it was about 9 p.m. at night. And he said, all right, Andrew, the tour ends here. So we're all going to go to our hotel now, or a restaurant or wherever else. And wish you luck. So I was like, all right, cheers. Got off the bus, and I realized I was stuck in downtown LA. I had no idea where I was, and I had no idea how to get back to my hostel. And I was wandering around. I didn't have a map. It was dark, and I actually stayed out till about 2 a.m. trying to find my way back home. I was wandering around LA, and I was really, really scared because there was gangs that I saw like out on the streets and stuff like that. So I called up my dad on my phone and calling him to Australia, and I said, "Dad," I was probably crying, I don't know. No, I wasn't crying. No, I said I need help. So he went on Google and he tried to find out where I was and how to get back to the hostel. And yeah, he gave me some directions. Then I got on a train and then I accidentally left my phone, on the train. So when my dad tried to call me back, I didn't answer. So he, of course, assumed the worst, that I'd been beaten up or, you know, something like that. And he freaked out. So he called up the hostel, and I eventually, when I finally got in at like 2 a.m. in the morning, the hostel was right at the desk, and they said, "Oh, you're that guy that I think your dad has been ringing constantly, asking where you are." So it was a very scary experience for me, stuck in the big city all by myself, and thought I'd share that little story with you just to kill some time. So anyway, we now have our basic city block like this. So if we go into edit mode right now and you look at the top right hand corner, you can see we've now got 753 vertices as opposed to the 1089 we had before. So we can go up to here now and just type in 753. Now if we turn back on our particle system here so we can see it, you can see that we now have what looks like a city, which is very, very cool. So I'm going to move the camera forward like this, point it down a little bit. Let's get it so that we can get a nice main street look like that. Okay, cool. I'm also just going to change the focal length of the camera to be 28 so that it's kind of a little bit more wider angle lens. Just like that. I'm just going to get a drink because my throat... Funny story, actually last night I went to hospital because yeah, I don't know, I just couldn't breathe properly and my heartbeat was racing, and I went to hospital here in Korea, and I got there and suddenly everything went normal again. So that was weird. It's always awkward when that happens. You go to hospital to get something checked out and you get there and everything just works again. Anyway, so I've just added in a floor right here. So what I'm going to do now is just have a look at how the scene looks when it's rendered. So I think we just added a sun lamp over here. So I'm going to move this to this layer right here, like so. I'm going to delete this default lamp, and with this sun lamp here selected, I'm going to change the strength to be 4, and I'm going to give the color a nice kind of orangey pink color, just like that. And one other thing you want to change is this size. Now this is something I only just recently learned. This size here essentially acts as the softness of the shadow. So at 1, that's going to be really, really super soft shadows. So the lower you set that, the sharper the looking shadows are. I learned this from, I don't know the name of the artist, but he posted up that cycles file of all the vegetation and the mountains and stuff he put on Blender Artist, and he shared his .blend file, and I learned about this little size value there, so I thought I'd share that with you. So I'm going to use a value of 0.001, and that's going to give us some nice sharp looking shadows. So let's give that a render now. Let's see how it looks. Scene's coming together very quickly. It's coming together quite nicely. I think the color is a little bit too pinkish, so perhaps something like that would look nicer. The other thing is you can see that it's rendering really, really slowly. So if you want to make it so that it is rendering from your GPU as opposed to your CPU, which is by default, I learned this recently as well the other day. If you go to the user preferences, then go to system, you can see down here you've got compute device. Normally it is set to none, so you've just got CPU. If you change that to CUDA, then select your graphics card from that. Then you go to the render settings right here. You now would see this device value here added, so you can now select GPU. So now if I give this a render, it should use my my graphics card as opposed to my CPU, and you should see now, I mean, look how much quicker that rendered, so much quicker. Okay, so looking at the scene, you can see you've got pretty much just direct lighting. Looks quite bland, quite basic. So what you want to have is some sky lighting. So you do that by going to the world settings, click use nodes, then we're just going to change this to be a nice kind of blue, kind of purple color, just like that. And now if we render that again, you should see that it looks a lot more realistic because you will have the skylighting there as well. There you go. It's looking, I mean, it's not realistic, but it's looking better than it was. So let's just make that value there 0.5. You can change that to be whatever you want, and you can make it a little bit more purple if you wanted to go for a kind of a more sunset type looking scene. It's just a matter of adjusting things as you go till you find something that looks nice. That doesn't look nice, it looks weird. So I'll make that more blue, not purple. And that's looking good. Okay, so next step is we're going to be adding in the roads. So again, this is something that yeah, is quite puzzling, and it's one of the downfalls when you think about making a city. How do you make the roads? You know, city blocks are easy enough, but the actual roads themselves, it's kind of hard. Well, I found a way to do it realistically. What we're going to be doing is just adding in a plane, right, this, and we're going to be just modeling the shape of the roads. We're going to have to do it by hand, okay? So it's kind of annoying, but it's what's necessary. So we're just going to have to go through this, just as I'm doing right now. And whenever there is an intersection, you just want to add in a little area like that. So you just want to stop the extrude, like so. Another extrude right there for this intersection. Another one there, another one there. And then to change the direction, yeah, you just go like this. Extrude that out. Extrude that one down. Another intersection right there. And you'll see why we're adding in these intersections in a moment, because the intersections are going to have a different texture to the main roads themselves. So that's why we're doing it like this. It's a little bit messy on that corner right there, but you get the gist of it. So you want to leave a little gap where there's going to be a sidewalk, okay? So you don't want to have it flush with the building. There has to be a little gap there, just for the sidewalk. Alright, I can combine these together just by hitting Alt-M and just select it like so. And then if you want to straighten out those vertices, hit SX0. And then the same with these, SY0. Alright. Okay, now normally I would say go ahead and just do the rest of the city. Just extruding the plane like as I am right now, but it's going to take a while to do that, so I'm just going to do whatever's really visible to the camera. So just this area here pretty much. This main street down the side there. Okay, so just this last street there. And then this one right here, you should be adding another intersection in there, but that'll be fine. It's not really going to be visible to the camera. Oh, maybe it will be. That's kind of annoying. Okay, so just like this. Let's make that, whoops, SY0. You know, this stuff isn't really hard. It's just takes a bit of time, that's all. So if you've got patience, then creating cities is for you. If you want a magic bullet that does everything for you at the push of a button, you might want to use a script. But in my personal experience, scripts, the ones that I've used, I tried using that Suicide City generator. I wasn't too happy with the results that it gave, and also very hard to install and very user unfriendly. So yeah, I wasn't happy with it, so I decided I'd find a new method and do it with particle systems instead. Anyway, so we've got the basic road set up now. Now, as I said before, I would recommend you do the whole city, because obviously that's what you should be doing, but because we're doing a tutorial, I'm just going to leave it at this and you guys can do the rest. So now that we've got this, what we need to do is UV unwrap it. So go to the UV image editor right here, and I'm just going to go ahead, hit U, then select, where is it? Unwrap, like that. And if we hit, let's go hit Control A, make sure that it's to the scale, because I had that little warning message there. So if we hit U, then it's pretty much looking the same. Let's go project from view bounds. There we go. Okay, so it's, actually, no, that's not right. It's just unwrap. Okay, anyway, let's, where's that? There's normally a function there which says unwrap to bounds. That's kind of weird. Reset. Unwrap. Anyway, so the lines are kind of crooked, which is a little bit annoying. So, alright, well, let's go project from view bounds then. Or, alright, let's just go project from view. Okay, there we go. Now we make sure that they're all proportioned the right way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give it a new texture, sorry, a new material. We're going to call this material roads. We're going to select image. Whoops. Oh, leave it at diffuse, but we're going to select image texture. And this image that I'm going to use right now is also from cgtextures.com. Roads, 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 roads. Right here, we're going to use roads 594S. So just put this in right here. That one that you can see right there. And what I want to do is I'm just using one of these vertical roads like this. I'm just going to scale it so that it roughly fits it. Just like that. Now what I'm going to do is go into face view, or sorry, face select mode like this. And I'm going to grab these faces one by one. And well, actually, you can see there's a problem. I want to grab this face and this face, but it's automatically selecting this face in the middle there. So what you need to do is change it from shared selection mode to be disabled. So now you can actually select one portion of the mesh like that and then just move it. So you don't have to like unweld or stitch or whatever else the vertices. You can just select, disabled like that. Then you can select these individual faces by themselves. And what I'm selecting is the intersections. So wherever there are two roads that are joining up together, then we're just going to select them like this. Or wherever there's a corner, we're just selecting them, because what we're going to have is this road texture going vertically and horizontally. So anywhere where there's a corner, you obviously couldn't have it horizontally or vertically. So we're just going to remove it, and we're just going to have a blank piece of asphalt. You know, the piece of road. Anyway, so it's not going to have any white painting on it. So once we've got that, I'm just going to go ahead and move that out of the way. Now, it's just a matter of taking these vertical pieces like this. Not those ones. We'll leave them there. Like so. And it's just a matter of lining them up so that it fits in with that image texture that we've got there in the background. So once you've got one that lines up, let's move the others over like that. Remove that one. It doesn't matter if it's over the edge, like if it's kind of like, like there. If it doesn't have to be exactly over the top of the image itself. Because it's a tileable image, it's just going to tile that vertically along all of those planes there. So provided it lines up horizontally, so that it's in line with that, then you should be fine. So I'm just going to move that over just like so. Deselect that one, move that one over, deselect that one. It's a very quick method. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is grab these horizontal vertices like this. Horizontal faces, I should say. Like that, one by one. And I'm going to rotate that so that it is now vertical. So you can sort of see what we're doing now is that we're making it so that all of these, if it's a horizontal road or a vertical road, we're making it so that it is still going to use this texture so that it is, the white lines and whatever else are going to be pointing in the right direction. So that's the reason for this process. I originally tried it so that you gave, horizontal roads a different texture, a different material, and then vertical roads a different material, and I found it just didn't work. It was just, you had to UV unwrap it anyway, so you might as well just use the same material and just UV unwrap it like this. This is what I found that's worked best, so that's why I'm doing it. Okay, so that one there should be rotated as well. Like that. Okay, so now you've got the bulk of the road set up. So if we just go into rendered view mode like this, we should see the roads mostly looking fine. Let's just zoom in and have a look. Okay, so this horizontal stretch there is using that road perfectly. The vertical stretch there is using the road perfectly. The only problem is these intersection areas. It's got this messed up part. So there is that one final step to do. So what we're going to do is just go into edit view mode right here. And I'm going to grab these squares like this. And I'm going to make it so that they are all in the exact same position. So This just takes a little bit of time. It's just a matter of grabbing these squares one by one and overlapping them, as I'm doing right now, so they're all in the exact same spot. So I'm sure you know how to do that. So let's just jump to what it's done when it's finished. Okay, so like that. So they're all now in one position. I'm just going to grab them now, move them up to this image texture here, and I'm just going to scale it down so that it is in a part of the image where there is no white lines. So it's just this blank asphalt right there, or the whatever you call it, the tarmac. And just scaling it up as large as you can so that the texture doesn't look too out of scale, but so that there is no white lines, just like that. So now if we jump back to our scene like this, if we go into rendered view mode, we should see, if we've done everything correctly, the roads should now all be perfect. Excellent. Okay, so you got one stretch here where I think I selected some faces where there should have been road, but I thought it was an intersection. But anyway, that's fine. You've also got, I think, that's a problem as well. Okay, so you've got I added in a ground plane before, but it's actually in the exact same spot as the road. So I'm just going to just move that ground plane there down slightly. Now if we go into rendered viewport shader mode, let's have a look. You can see now it's all looking fine and dandy. You should probably have more road up there or whatever, but you get the gist of it. It's just a matter of just going through the city and making it look nice. So now that we've done that, we're pretty much coming to the end of the tutorial. I'll show you one final thing, and that is how to set up those lamp posts, because I know that some people will want to know that. It's just a matter of just completing the scene. So whatever you can to, if whatever patience you have to make the city look good, then yeah, that's essentially how good it's going to look. So if you're really lazy and don't really care about it, and you just try and whack it together as quickly as possible, then you're going to come up with a pretty lazy, poor looking city. So I recommend spending a bit of time just making it so that it looks nice. So lamp posts I found are, I don't know, larger than one story, almost two. So like that. I might just scale that down. That's way too thick. Okay, like that. So up there like that. Scale it inwards because the base of it is a lot thicker than up the top there. Then I'm just going to extrude this. There's something wrong, I think, with the spin tool. Like normally I'd say use the spin like that, but I found it just kind of screws it up recently. I just couldn't get it to work. I think it's a bug in Blender. Anyway, it's not too much of a problem. We've got a kind of curved edge there anyway. That's all right. So I'm just going to create a very basic looking lamppost. I'm not using a reference image, which I should, but but I'm lazy. It's not that big of a part of the scene, so I think we can get away with it. So just like that, turn on smooth shading. You can see you've now got a lamppost. Now to make it so that it appears all across the road, I might just go put it in the center of the road first. Go into edit mode, move it so the origin is in the center of the road like that. Then add in a mirror modifier. Make sure it's on the y-axis like that, so it's now appearing on both sides of the road. Then we're going to add in an array, like so, and then let's just turn up that number. And this is going to create some lampposts across the entire scene, basically. So this is how we do it. Now you'll notice that the lampposts are appearing in places where there shouldn't be a lamppost, like smack dab in the middle of an intersection. And I wish I had an easy method for it. I wish I could say, hey, you know, we can add a particle system so it only appears on the road, or you know, something like that. But it's not really an easy way to do it. So I found that this is just, it's just one of those things you just have to do. So that's, we're just going to use the basic array system like this, and then we're going to click apply to that array, and then just going into edit mode, I'm just going to move them and position them so that if they're supposed to be there, oh, that's kind of weird. Okay, you can also apply the mirror if you want. Yeah, so essentially you're just getting rid of if they're stuck in the middle of an intersection. Moving this one over or whatever else. Anyway, that's one basic road setup with lampposts. It's very easy, guys. It's really simple. It's just a matter of just going through it by hand, piecing it together. I also added in some rubbish bins in mine, but that's optional. You don't have to do that, so I won't show you how to do that. The other thing I added in was cars. So anyway, I'll get to that at the end. I'm just showing you the basic city so you guys can have at it. One final thing I will do is that you'll notice that in our final render here, the orange buildings are really, really obvious to the viewer that they are repeating, and so are the blue ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to our original buildings over here. And you can see that the buildings have names, so you've got cube and whatever else. This one is called orange, and then this one here is called blue, okay? So what I want to do is, with our particle system here selected, if we go down and click on use count, and also you can click pick random as well, I should have done that, so pick random. You want to increase the number, increase the count for all of these buildings except for blue and except for orange. So if we just increase all of these to 3, except for orange, like that, 3 or 4 doesn't really matter that much. Okay, now if we have a look at it, you should see the orange building appearing a lot less. If it's still appearing too much, you can go ahead and increase that to 4 or 5. It's just a matter of just making it so that it's as not in your face as it currently is. You can also change the seed and try and see which buildings, which particle system setups look the best. So this one looks kind of good because you've only got the orange building appearing a couple of times. So let's give that a render now. It's got the road, it's got the majority of the scene set up pretty well. Oh, okay, you got to make sure you add in the sun as well. That would look cool for kind of nighttime scene. So if somebody wants to make a nighttime scene from this, go for it. I really want to see how that goes. There's some textures on CG Textures for the buildings that are just for nighttime. So go ahead and download those and see how that works. I'd really be curious to see how that all looks. So the scene is, it's essentially done. I mean, you've got parts of road missing or whatever else, so it looks kind of incomplete. But as I said, piece it together, guys. You know how to do it. So I'm just going to go now and add in a hazy looking effect. So jumping over to the compositor here, what I'm going to do is add in a map value node, like so. Take the output of the Z output like that. Add in a mix node. Actually, first of all, let's add in a viewer node like this, and we're going to make the size of that 0.01. Turn the offset down as well. Okay, just like that. Check use minimum and use maximum always, otherwise it kind of turns out funny. And then, I shouldn't have removed that viewer node. Anyway, so I'm now going to take the output of the render layer node, put it into this screen node that you can see right here. And now, if we turn that, actually no, what are we doing? Hang on a minute. Oh, that goes into the factor value node. There we go, right there. So now if we want to change the amount of this hazy, foggy type of effect, you can crank that up actually, if you want to make it more. You can change this amount right here. So if you want like orange fog or whatever else, you can go for it here. And you can also turn down the amount that it's actually showing through. Because it's in screen view mode, if we make this darker, it's actually going to act as kind of an opacity for the fog. So you can kind of experiment with that. Get some nice foggy, hazy effect in there. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's just make that 2 perhaps. And then I'll crank that up a little bit more. And that is the gist of it. I will give it one final render. So for your renders, guys, if you're not experienced with the Cycles rendering engine, where is it? It looks like I'm not experienced. Just change the render amount there to be something around about 100. Give that a render and see how that looks. Okay, and there you go. You've got the finished scene. So that is essentially it, guys. Now, I would recommend that you go out there and you make this look as random looking as possible. And I don't mean chaotic. I mean make it so that it is, you don't have repeated looking buildings. So you can see here, this building here looks identical to that one. So does that one. So does that one. You got like 4 here that look exactly the same. So that's why I recommend adding or modeling as many buildings as you can. So I've got a bunch here. One little trick you can do as well, and this is something I kind of showed before. If you take all your buildings, duplicate them, and then if you rotate it by 90 degrees or 180, whatever else, just so that the tops of the buildings there, like where that little parts on the top there appear, it will appear, yeah, it'll look more random because it's now rotated 90 degrees or whatever else, so that you won't have like that building there looking exactly the same as that one, like it'll be flipped on the other side. So it'll help kind of break it up. That's a quick way of doing that. Now again, having a look at my final scene that I used, one right here, I added in a bunch of extra stuff. So I added in cars, that's a big one. I didn't include it in this tutorial because I think it's fairly basic. This car, I didn't actually make. It is a low poly model which I got off Turbo Squid. So if you type in low poly car or something like that and just check out the free models there. Yeah, there's a bunch of free models which you can use. This one here is a ute. Or a truck, I guess you guys call it in America. And all I did was I just imported in the .obj, you know, added in the texture that it provides for you. And then I also added in, just wherever the headlights are, I just added in a new material, made it an emitter like that. And then those now become headlights. And then you do the same with the back, so you've got tail lights. And I only used two different model types. I used one car and one ute. And then I used, if you go to the node editor here, you can see that I used this hue saturation value node to completely change the color of the vehicle. So you change the hue and it changes the color. You change the saturation and it becomes white. You change the value and it can become black. So I created a whole range of different colored cars and stuff, all from just two free models that I found online. And then for animating it, that was quite simple as well. Let's just show you here. So essentially what I got was a group of cars, put them all together, and then I added an empty, and then I just animated that empty so that it moves, and then all the other cars move with it. So it's really, really basic. You can have a bit of fun with it. You can see right here, I had a bit of fun with mine, and I made it so that this car hits that one, and then he does a hit and run. You can see here. He's like, he's like, oh no, I don't have money. And he drives away. So you can kind of have fun with stuff like that. Anyway, that's kind of lame. So I also added in some trash cans or rubbish bins, if you want to call it that, and a whole bunch of other little stuff. I also added in behind the camera, I added in a physical helicopter up here. And that casts a shadow on the building. So it's only noticeable for like 1 second of my animation when you can see the shadow up there. And I found that it just, it looked quite nice. It just kind of added in a little subtle element which looks realistic to the viewer. So this is the video here again. You can see up there, you got the little shadow of the helicopter there appearing. So, yeah, so that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned a couple of things from it. If any of you want to go out there and create a nighttime city, I'd really love to see yeah, how that goes. I'd like to see your results. So by all means, post them in the comments below. And yeah, I'm really keen to check out what you did. So that's all from me, guys. I hope you learned some stuff from this tutorial, and I will see you next time.